All right, so we're here with Mark Myers, the owner of Royal Coffee Bar, right? Royal Coffee. I'm so happy to have you here, and I would love to just for us to talk a little bit about yourself and our collaboration a little bit today. What do you think?
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Mark Meyer. I'm the owner. Me and my wife Nisha, we own Royal Coffee out in the Biltmore shopping area. We've been in collaboration a little bit here with Juan over with Grimaldi Group. We are a young couple that just, we've only been in business for a couple of years. We've been like really passionate about coffee, trying to grow our thing, just, make good coffee and grow community.
Definitely. Yeah. That's awesome to hear about. And you've been in business for around 2 years now, right?
Yeah, just over 2 years now, yeah.
2 years. How's it been? How's it been hanging out over there at the Biltmore Square?
It's been incredible. We have seen so much more growth over this last year, especially from the year prior, because which is insane, because we didn't really know what to expect when we first bought the business from the last owner. We had just moved locations, even though we had moved maybe like 100 feet over. We like so many people didn't know that we left, and so then we moved over to the place that we're currently at, and we went from seeing like not very many sales in one day to now we're like breaking our own record year by year.
That's awesome.
And we're looking to continue that growth upward, which is incredible. But that's just what happens when you just make the best coffee in the block.
There we go. Hey, we said it here first, right? We make the best coffee. We, Nisha, Mark, and me make the best coffee. Don't forget about it, right? But anyway, Ron, so you said something about previous owner, right? Well, can you explain to us a little bit about the acquisition or how Royal Coffee came to be? Yeah,
so I think I'm the fourth or fifth owner of Royal Coffee. I don't fully know the history, but I know that Royal Coffee has been a pretty big coffee chain in Phoenix for quite a while, maybe about like 12 or so years.
12 years.
Yeah, and there used to be 6 locations, but then COVID kind of came in and kicked out 4 of them, and then there was a 5th location at ASU North, I think, and then something happened with construction or something, and that one fell through.
Oh wow!
I was the manager for the last owner of Royal Coffee, and
awesome.
And as his manager and whatnot, I basically ran the show for him. And after a while, he is really into like solar company installation and whatnot. He owns one solar company installation business and is like partly in like the high corporate of another one. And by then, after all the stuff through COVID and losing so many cafes locations, and now we're just down to the one location. He just wanted to sell it off, and so he gave us a fantastic deal. Me and my wife, we looked at our numbers and we decided, yeah, we can actually do this. And so, we felt like it was a very safe bet for a first business with an established customer base, audience community, and whatnot. And so we've just been learning and growing, and
awesome.
That's been our journey so far.
Beautiful. And from what it seems, right, from what I'm listening to, right, you're very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You're very passionate about coffee. Could you give me a little bit of background of your experience in the coffee world?
So I've been a barista for almost 8 years now. I think this July actually will be the 8th year.
8 years.
In 2018, I moved to Sydney, Australia, studying abroad over with Hillsong College, actually. My goal was not baristas. Baristaing. I went over to Hillsong College to study music and songwriting and whatnot.
Music.
And awesome. And so when I got there, I got thrown onto the church's coffee team. And because like when you're there, you have to serve in some sort of team for the church. And so I joined the Hillsong Cafe and started serving there on Sunday mornings, and I learned how to make espresso, because over there in Australia, like they really care about their espresso, like
definitely.
A lot.
When you're always around wild animals, right? With the absolute like insane proportions, I can definitely see why some people would be cranky about their coffee, right?
Yes, 100%. And
sense.
Like the coffee culture over there is definitely booming. They are so picky about their coffee, and everyone like they know their coffee order. They love it. They love their local cafes. Anyway, so I was serving on the team with over at Hillsong Church, and then I was the leader of my team over at Hillsong Church, and then I even did 2.5 semesters of they have a night college, a night school, where I taught people how to be a barista from scratch. It was called the Barista Basics class. Awesome. That they offered for a while, and then unfortunately that got cut short part because of COVID kicked in. And then I was in Sydney, Australia throughout the whole COVID from 2020 to 2022-ish. And then I wasn't able to continue doing the Barista Basics class, but you know, I taught so many people how to make coffee from scratch, going from not knowing anything to making like a really good shot. And they're like, there's one time I had my roommate come by, and he got a coffee from one of my students, and he was like, "This is one of the best coffees I've ever had. You taught them this from scratch?" And it was like,
awesome.
Yeah. And like there were some people who learned from nothing to learning even how to do some basic latte art, which is really difficult to get people into.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, that was a blast, and I'd love to get back to teaching some more like coffee classes in the future, but you never know. That could be a fun thing.
Future business opportunity right there, if I say so myself.
I went from Hillsong Coffee, and I still served at Hillsong Coffee every now and then while I was still in Australia. But going through COVID, I started working at a cafe called Leaf Cafe, which I worked at a year and a half. Which is where I got, you know, even more, you know, like artisanal barista training. You know, it was, I almost want to say it was almost like a Chef Ramsay experience where, you know, you remake this coffee. That's not good enough.
Okay.
And it was very stressful at first.
Intense.
It was intense. But then I got really used to it. And then I got a lot faster as a barista, and I learned how to make, how to not sacrifice quality with speed. And I got really good at latte art. Well, I got pretty decent at latte art.
Sweet.
And then, you know, then I moved on to a different restaurant just because it paid a little bit better, and continued that experience there. And I still heard some people saying, "Oh, wow, this is the best coffee I've ever had." And I'm like, "That's surprising, but thanks." Compliments
are common over here, from what I'm listening to. Yeah. But so this was all in Australia still, right?
Yeah, I lived in Australia for 4 years.
Got it. So when did you make the change to come to Arizona, like where the heat is at?
I'm from Oregon, but I've lived in Arizona for most of my life. I went through middle school and high school here in Arizona, and then I left from Arizona to Australia and whatnot. And then I finished my studies and whatnot, and I was already at kind of a crossroads in life. And the decision was, okay, so do I want to continue with trying to figure out a permanent living solution in Australia legally? Because, you know, you got to live off. I was living off of a student visa.
Okay.
And so you have to find either way of permanent residence. Maybe you can get lucky and, you know, marry an Aussie girl.
There we go.
Which was on the table, but never kind of went my way.
Nisha swooped you in, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I was already online friends with Nisha, my wife now, and we had been online friends for pretty much that whole 4 years. I had met her just at the end of my first semester at Hillsong College, and you know, after COVID eased off and the restrictions, because I could always leave the country, but I couldn't fly back to Australia because COVID, they kind of like shut down their borders. And so because I couldn't come back, I didn't want to leave. I knew a handful of people who were like, "Oh no, I heard a rumor that they're allowing people back in the country, so they went home for Christmas or whatnot, and they couldn't get back in, and they were stuck in America." And we were like, "Well, Lord. That's what you get." But no, I waited for the actual go on that, and then I surprised my parents for Christmas, which was hilarious, seeing my dad's jaw hit the floor going like, "Can you get back in the country?" And I'm like,
"Oh Lord."
Nice to meet you, Dad.
Man,
that was fun. So yeah, I surprised my parents for Christmas after being stuck in Australia for so long, and then I went and I visited some other friends in Arizona, and I met Nisha in person for the first time after 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So
3 years.
online, essentially online communication.
Yeah.
And then somehow a developed relationship here in Arizona.
Yeah. So we were just friends at the time, and so I hung out with her twice in that time in Arizona for that little trip, and then kind of realized that I was starting to catch some feelings. I was like, okay, there's something going on here. Truthfully, it was too easy to communicate with her. It's too easy to just sit there and there was one night we stayed up until like 3 a.m.
Oh wow!
And the time just flew by, and that doesn't just happen.
That's true.
So she definitely caught my attention, and then this and that happened. I ended up going back to Australia, obviously, and finishing off the next semester of the college that I was in, and then we started dating long distance, and we started talking about it, and I ended up moving back, and then we started dating in person. Got engaged, got married. We've been married for 2 years now. I've been back in America for 3 years. So 4 years in Australia, 3 years here is the 7 years of barista experience. Pretty much immediately got hired as the soon-to-be manager for Royal Coffee. Even though I pretty much acted as the manager the entire time, even though I wasn't officially promoted yet. It wasn't long before I got the actual role.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Because when I got the interview, he was asking for a manager the whole time. So I went in with the context like, okay, no, I'm going to be the manager. And and it was definitely that attitude that went in that got me that position. But anyway, so I definitely brought my Australian barista expertise over to America and came to find that barista is a lot different over here. It's a much different crowd.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
what compare the crowds. How different are really the American and the Australian people?
So American coffee culture is evolving.
Okay.
But I feel like it's not quite there yet.
Really?
There is a lot of...
We're behind. America's behind.
I think we are behind, yes.
Wow. Okay.
There is a lot of confusion with over-marketing with all these big companies like Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks especially that are kind of like throwing out these big marketable terms because Americans love titles. A lot of other countries just kind of exist. You just kind of do what you do and maybe give some little names. I don't know. Americans, they love like titles and whatnot. And Starbucks has really grown the caramel macchiato. Dutch Bros has really grown the iced coffee. And coming from a more artisanal coffee background, what is an iced coffee? We make we make coffee over ice a handful of different ways. We can do an iced dirty chai, we can do an iced latte, we can do an iced cold brew, and we can do an iced Americano. And all of those different things have different variations. If you come in and you want iced coffee, I go, well, which kind of iced coffee do you want? What do you want in your iced coffee? Do you want milk? Do you want non-milk? Is it a black coffee with a splash of milk? Are we talking about an iced latte with a lot of milk in it? What flavors do you want? If you go to Australia, you go in, you go like, oh, I want a small, extra hot, flat white. And that's it. And we know what it is. American coffee culture is a bit more complicated and people have more convoluted orders, which I was really bitter to at first.
Okay. A little bit of beef. Going
from like people know what they want and what they're talking about. Everyone knows how to order coffee in Australia because it's always the same. Every cafe is the same, and if anything, the beef from cafe to cafe is who makes coffee better. And in America, it's less about the quality of the coffee itself because everyone just douses it in sugar anyway. And that's just kind of how coffee culture has grown from like the 1700s up until now. It's just like black coffee with sugar and a bit of cream. And then it's not until more recently that like more like espresso based coffee culture has come into the mix and gone like, okay, maybe we can throw in like a latte over here, maybe we can do like some fun like iced lattes, or like how Starbucks likes to call them like the iced macchiatos and whatnot. We go more the traditional route and go like, okay, in actual Italy, we start with our espresso and we make some amazing espresso, really velvety, rich coffee, and then we throw in like the flavors and the steamed milk or the iced coffee and stuff like that from that, and we take it from the reverse route, and we care about our coffee first and then syrups and everything second, where I feel like most other places just make big batches of coffee, douse it, and here's your iced coffee, there you go.
Oh wow.
And so that's what this whole like third wave or specialty or artisanal cafe comes in, and I think that's like that's what they're calling like the third wave of coffee culture coming through America. Is that more like we care about our coffee, we're here to make it the best way we can every single time.
So America has a cultural problem where what they want is just a trend, a title, something that catches the attention.
Okay. I think I would agree with that. It's both that they care too much about like giving everything a fancy name, and also that people just haven't stopped to care enough about coffee or get into it, which isn't necessarily their fault. It's not my job to stop everyone and nerd out about them.
Of course.
To this and that. They just want their coffee and move on with their day. But I want to I want their experience to be, they take a sip of my coffee, they stop in the door, they turn around and be like, this is better than I'm used to it being. And I've gotten that response a lot of times where they turn around and go, this is really good, and they don't need to understand why, but it's just that extra effort that we put into it, which is where this comes from. And that's really what I took home from Australia and to put into what is now my cafe.
That's the passion that you infused in the business.
That we infuse in the business.
Okay.
If we want to get more into the nitty gritty, we weigh all of our shots. We have a recipe that we do. We have a 1 to 1.2 ratio, which means that we weigh.
Secret though, ingredient secrets.
It'd be a 2.2 ratio.
Okay.
We weigh our coffee grounds to 21.5 grams exactly.
Okay.
No, actually 20.5 grams, I think. Yeah, 20.5 grams exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we weigh our shots, the output of our shots to 46 grams of coffee out. I always question it because I always stop it at 42, then let the rest of the shot drip out, and it equals out to 46. So 42 is the number in my head to stop it at. But yeah, so 20.5 to 46 is a 2.2 ratio or a 2.25 ratio, and it's a really comfortable, flavorful experience that we really like.
Incredible.
And we follow every time. We weigh out every single shot. We make sure that our equipment is clean, and we pay attention to how we're frothing milk. We're not just frothing milk. There are different layers to it. If you ordered a flat white or a latte or a cappuccino, we want to give those levels of milk froth that traditionally you would expect if you were to go into, the same Australian standards. I'm just bringing back to America. And people might not understand exactly what they are, but they can tell once they take a sip of the coffee. They're like, wait, this has a higher standard, but they might not be able to explain it, but it's there.
Okay, so from the looks of it, just in a little bit of a recap, America has a problem, a coffee problem. Clearly outlined, right?
Yeah.
Where the culture has absolutely just infused it in trends and sugars and this and that. The essence of what the coffee is gone. That's the problem.
Kind of. Like I said, it has gotten a lot better. It is definitely rolling through, and I think Arizona might have a coffee problem, and that might have to do with the big drive-through based experience of just like quick coffee. Here's this, then off on your day. Yeah. I do know that there are a lot of American-based cities that have some amazing coffee.
Oh yeah, definitely.
My parents live in Oregon. We're actually about to be in Oregon pretty soon, and I can tell you, I'm most definitely going to stop by my favorite coffee shop in Gresham, Oregon, and they make some very good coffee. I go there and I look at their menu and everything, and I'm like, this is like home. This is how I want to be too. What can I learn from these guys? And what are they doing?
Of course.
How can I take this back to Arizona? Seattle has some amazing coffee. I've heard that Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think it is Pittsburgh. Has some a really good coffee scene. Same with New York. I'd love to travel a bit more and taste some of these cafes throughout America. But I do know that the coffee scene in Arizona is growing. There are some other coffee companies and whatnot that are building some more third wave, good coffee. But
artisanal almost.
Artisanal, but I feel like we're definitely coming in the middle of it, but I almost feel like one of the pioneers of my area.
There we go.
This is what coffee can be, and I feel like the expectations should grow a little bit more from like even the average consumer.
Well, I mean, my point still stands. America has a problem. Arizona has a problem, and you're here to fix it. Royal Coffee is here to fix it.
Yeah,
beautiful. That's honestly incredible. Just to also a little bit of a recap, just to be clear, you're a master at your work.
Yes.
You've gone through countless hours of training, countless hours of just head grinding numbers, as we can clearly tell, right? It's incredible the level of detail that you've gone to just in this short interview, honestly. But it just goes to show how incredible that coffee that you're making, that special, homemade, almost like nostalgic coffee that makes people turn the backs and say, dude, you got something, right? You got something absolutely special. And I absolutely adore your passion for coffee in general. I'm sure that Nisha has been really, really supporting you in that journey, right? Because as you've clearly stated, Arizona, it has a lot of drive-by issues, fast food. We are very much a highway-based city, so traffic is very fast, very come and go. So now that you give them an actual experience, right, where they can actually enjoy something in good old Scottsdale, right? Scottsdale, Arizona. That's absolutely beautiful. And I mean, honestly, the comparison between American people and Australian people, that's something that I never expected. How different, absolutely different, they both compare. What makes coffee absolutely delicious? Why do you think that it's gone brain dead over here in America? The sugars?
It's gotten better. I think that people just haven't put enough effort into understanding the science behind how coffee works.
Okay.
Because you see, if you most people think about coffee, you just kind of like throw it together and you brew a batch and then you drink it. And if it's not to your liking, you add some cream, you add some creamer, you add some sugar, and then you sweeten it up, and then it's good enough to drink.
Great.
But coffee is a lot closer to baking than people realize. You know, when you make a batch of cookies, if you just kind of throw everything together, you know, one batch will look completely different to another batch. One cookie won't rise as well. One cookie will rise way too much. And if you are, you know, with cookies, they look so much different from batch to batch based on like how you're throwing it all together that you'll obviously tell like, oh, that is different. With coffee, it's all if we're talking just like batch brewed coffee, just regular drip home, you know, I'm forgetting the name of the brand, but, you know, like a good black brew of a black coffee. Okay. You know, it's not going to look any different, but then you'll taste it and you go like, oh, this coffee actually came out not too bad.
There we go.
And then that coffee's not as good today, but okay, I'll just put more creamer in it. If we can understand why. What makes one batch taste good, what makes one batch taste bad, and it really just comes down to weighing things and, you know, making sure you're putting the exact same amount of coffee in every time, making sure you're distributing the coffee grounds in your container, whichever way you're brewing coffee, the exact same way every time, so that water can travel evenly through it. Especially with espresso, because you're dealing with very, very tightly compact, very finely ground coffee. And if you're making it in a way where water is like it's like a flat puck. We call it a puck after we've tamped it down. Okay. You know, the puck looks flat, but if it was like a mound on like the left and then kind of like a divot on the right, and then you tamp that down, it looks flat. But then the water will still rush to the right, even though it looks flat, like to your eye.
Yeah, visibly.
Yeah, visibly. So what you want to do is you want to like really level everything out. There are a lot of different tools that we use. We use a level. So what I normally do when I make a shot is I'll make the shot and I'll weigh it out and I'll put it in my portafilter, my handle thing with the basket in it, and then I'll bang it against my hand a few times to flatten it out. I'll put it on the counter. I'll put the level and it spins it, and it makes a very nice and flat surface. And then put it in my machine that tamps it perfectly to the exact weight every time. If you want to use a home tamper, you can put it in and make sure you're tamping straight down, just enough to where you're no longer like the coffee will like squish and then it'll stop squishing. It happens very quickly, but if you pay attention to it, you can feel it. And that's as hard as you need to tamp, and then you put it through the machine, and then the water will run perfectly through at the exact same time. And then, you know, if you can measure all those variables and get used to doing the same technique every time, suddenly you're making the exact same coffee every single time. There's no longer, you know, like one person in line gets this coffee, one person in line gets a worse coffee. It's, you know, everyone gets the exact same experience.
An incredible experience, exactly. An incredible coffee. This Mark Meyer class of yours, that sounds like a good idea to me. If you want to make a quality coffee, just search up my videos, Mark Meyer, he'll give you step by step exactly what you need to do to make that quality coffee. That sounds like a great idea.
Maybe I can dive into the YouTube world.
There we go.
You never know.
Hey, I that sounds like a great idea, and I'm sure you guys can make something happen in that occasion. But all right, awesome. Well, do you have any questions for us? I mean, we've been helping each other out market each other, right? I'm in the real estate business. You're in the coffee business. How are we making things work? I mean, and from my point of view, this is an absolute blast to be able to talk to you, someone who's so passionate, right? That's already a benefit for me. But what do you think we should offer? What are we offering each other right now as collaborators, as partners?
Yeah. Well, right now I think, and like what we were talking about earlier, we were talking about, you know, like business helps business. We're here to network and connect more people. You know, maybe people are watching this because they're more curious about coffee culture. But then you're like, oh, who's the Grimaldi Group?
Exactly.
The Grimaldi Group. You know, maybe they can, you know, go into like, oh, can we the real estate options over here. You know, we are here to, you know, show up to some of your events and bring like a little pop-up stand and sell some royal coffee, and, you know, like they always say, you know, deals happen, relationships happen around a table, around some good like food and drink.
Exactly.
And, you know, if we can bring some conversation around some good coffee, you know, that never goes wrong.
Exactly. It never goes wrong, and it always brings something good to the table, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, now that we actually are in the topic, we are having a grand opening. Royal Coffee is going to be there presumably be, right?
Yep.
You're going to be there. And we're going to offer some free coffee to anyone who attends there. More than anything, we're there to have a good time. We're going to have tacos, we're going to have paletas, we're going to have everything Mexican, and then we're going to have something a little extra, a little bit of coffee, artisanal coffee, where you'll be blown away, absolutely blown away. You will never in the history of Arizona ever have to worry about having a bland, stale, crumbly cookie like coffee, right? Because we need and obviously a sweet, a lovely, a caring coffee. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you a lot, Mark. This has been an incredible experience. I don't know about you, but I'm sure we'll be able to work a lot more in the future. I hope so, right? We have a lot of plans in the future, a lot more events and a lot more videos to cover so that we can, market a little bit more of what we need to each other. But yeah, awesome. All right, Mark. Well, I'll see you next time, right? We'll see you guys next time as well, maybe in another video. And this has been a pleasure, right, brother?
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you, brother.